To create the Loadson mod, you will need the Loadson MDK, which can be downloaded from the GitHub wiki, and just extract the files to a folder on your computer. I copy-paste the files from the archive to a folder on my computer, and then just run the modbuilder.exe, and on the smart screen you will need to click more info and run anyway. Now select your Karlson installation, make sure it's a clean installation and it doesn't have a melon loader or Bapinex or other loaders. And here just type your mod name, make sure it's something unique. Now open the solution with Visual Studio, just double click it and open the metadata file to put your display name, your author name, your name, and write a short description for the mod. Also in the depths equals, just leave it empty, and create a file by right clicking new item, a class, and name it main. Now we are going to copy over the using declarations from the GitHub wiki, since you don't need the system namespace. Also make the class inherit mod, and just like in the wiki, make the class public. Now we will override the onEnable void function, which is in the mod class, and here we do basic things on enable. So for example, we will log to the console. Also here we will load the assets from the asset bundle, but we will do that later after we create the asset bundle. We are going to make a mod with the custom crosshair, and we will register a callback on the scene manager scene loaded event. Now we will check if the build index is greater than 1, which means it's a level, and we will disable the crosshair and render our own crosshair with the onGUI method. For this we need to see the actual object that we need to disable, and I will use Karlson with Melon Loader and Unity Explorer to check and see what crosshair UI is. If you want to do this, you can install Melon Loader and Unity Explorer. You can find those on the internet. I will also leave links in the description. Here you can see why I checked for the build index to be greater than 1, because the level starts on index 2. Here I spent quite a bit of time finding the object, because it was not in the scene, it was in the don't destroy on load category. Eventually I found it, and now I will just copy the path of the game object. We can call GameObject.find with the path, make sure to remove the trailing slash, and we can set active to false. Now I will override the onGUI function of the mod class to know when I need to render the crosshair. I will create a boolean for in level, which I will set to true when I'm in a level, or else when I loaded outside of a level to false. Now if I'm in a level, I will call GUI.drawTexture to render the crosshair to the screen. I will also center it to the screen, and for now give it a width and height of 100. Now this crosshair will be loaded, and I will create a variable to remember it, and on enable we will assign it to the load asset, and we will pass in the type texture2D and the name crosshair. So firstly I'll design a crosshair in Paint, and then I'll add it to the asset bundle. I will use paint.net because I like it. So here you can see me making a crosshair. Eventually I made it 10 by 10, not 100 by 100. And just save it to my desktop. Now we'll create a Unity project to create the asset bundle. Make sure the Unity version is 2019.2.6. I'll name it my Karlson mod. You can name it whatever you want, it doesn't matter. Here create a folder called editor and drag and drop the export bundle.cs file from your Loadson MDK, and then drag the crosshair directly in the assets folder. You can also mess around with the texture quality and the compression. It doesn't really matter for my 10 by 10 crosshair, but for bigger pictures you can select RGBA 32-bit. I'll just leave it to automatic because for me it doesn't matter. Now for the asset bundle, at the bottom click new, give it any name, it doesn't matter. I will also call it my Karlson mod. And you do this for every asset you want in the asset bundle, and just click at the top asset and build assets. Now the MDK version I downloaded did not have the correct export bundle.cs. Normally a window opens with your asset bundles. I'll just browse it for now, but when you download it, it will show up this window, and you will only see the asset bundle you built. Now just copy and paste it over to your mod. And rename it to asset bundle, as you can also see on the GitHub wiki. And now to build your mod, simply from Visual Studio click Ctrl B, or if you want from the top you need to go to View Toolbars and make sure the build toolbar is active, and click either one of those two buttons. Now there are two files generated which you use. The .klm file, you paste it in your Loadson mods folder, and the other file you give it for people to install your mod. Now we are going to test the mod. You can see in the console the log, and you can also see the crosshair. It's big because I forgot to modify the width to 10 by 10. I'll rebuild the mod and paste it again in the mods folder and run Loadson again. Okay, that's better. Now there are two other features which I didn't show you, and those are the crossmod API and the menu entry. You can also see the mod in the mods category. For now the details but doesn't work, but that will be fixed. Now you can, for the icon, make your own icon, or I'll just edit it in Paint, but make sure it's 64 by 64. Here you can see how you can install with the KLMI file. Just double click it and it's installed. Here you can see in the mod manager the picture, and in the info you have all the information. So description, name, author, dependencies, the asset bundle, and also in game in the list you can see the picture. Also, one thing is you can only call load asset in the onEnable function. Now for cross-mod API, you simply call the add API function, give a name to your function. We do GUID.name, and for the lambda I will pass a discard operator because I don't care about the arguments for this function. You can see me writing a version function. It's recommended for all API mods to have this, so other mods can check the version. Now I'll create a few example methods. I will create enable and disable, and they can be called from another mod, and I will make them enable or disable the mod. For this I'll create another boolean to see if the mod is enabled. Also, this lambda returns null because it's essentially a void function. In the disable I'll set it to false. I'll also add a function to get if the mod is enabled, which will return the mod enabler value. Now I will show you how to call this from within this mod because I don't want to make another mod. So to call the function, we use call API function, the name of the API function. So my Karlson mod.version. I'll pass null as the arguments because there are no arguments. I'll store it in a variable. We also need to cast to string. And here you can see how you would check for the major version. So we'll just split on dot and get the first value, and we'll check if it's equal to literal 1. So if it's not equal, we will log to the console that the version is not good. So this is how you would do it in another mod if you would use an API of another mod. And now you can return out of the onEnable, or I don't know, you maybe set a boolean and not call the API. So that's just an example of calling. Also, when using other mods for the API, you will need in the metadata to set their GUID. If you don't know your GUID, it's the one in the namespace. You can also see spaces get replaced by underscores. So you would do depth equals and then my custom mod. If this were to be another mod, then you would want to call API functions here. Just leave it empty for now. So for menu entries, we will call menu entry dot add menu entry, and we will pass a list of pair string action. I'll create two buttons, enable and disable, to enable or disable the mod. So on GUI, if I'm in a level and the mod is enabled, I draw the crosshair, and for the scene loaded, if the mod is enabled, we'll set active false the crosshair, else we'll set it true. Now, because of the system namespace, there are a few problems. That's why I encourage you to use system.action, and you could also use system collection generic list, but that's a bit too much. So we'll just leave list and leave the using there. Now again, we'll test the mod. You can see the name is a bit long and it doesn't fit on a line, and you can see the options. So you can see the mod is enabled by default, and we can disable it. You can see the default crosshair and enable it back, and again the custom crosshair. So these are all the features, and you can do a lot of things with this. Happy modding.